It's called The View?
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but
It's
isn't it interesting that it's called, I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
there is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That's correct.
They call it The View, but these days it feels more like the monologue. Once a space designed for the exchange of diverse perspectives, it has gradually turned into an echo chamber where ideological purity is praised louder than logic and dissent is treated like treason. But every now and then, the script breaks, the spotlight wavers, and the carefully curated performance collapses under its own contradictions. What happened recently on national television wasn't just a heated debate. It was a total ideological implosion. And at the center of this spectacle, Sunny Hostin, a woman so accustomed to applause, she forgot what pushback sounds like. Sunny, a former federal prosecutor and current co-host of The View, has built a reputation on courtroom-style rhetoric. Her weapon of choice? Moral certainty. She doesn't argue, she proclaims. Every discussion is a trial, and she is the star witness, judge, and jury all in one. That formula might work when your fellow panelists are either in agreement or too intimidated to push back. But what happens when you step out of your safe space and into a battlefield where facts, not feelings, win? Enter Bill, Maher, and Megyn. Kelly, two seasoned media veterans who've weathered more controversy than a season's worth of The View episodes. Maher, known for his dry, withering sarcasm, and Kelly, famous for her poised takedowns, are not the type to back away from confrontation, especially when the opponent is someone like Sunny, whose confidence in her correctness borders on the theological. The takedown began subtly. Maher appeared on his own show, responding to a recent segment on The View where Sunny had taken aim at him. Instead of ranting or yelling, Maher smiled. He dismissed the idea that her criticism was meaningful, and calmly dismantled the notion that karma had somehow come for Whoopi Goldberg, who had also recently found herself in hot water. "There's no such thing as karma," he said flatly. "Get over that." That alone was enough to shift the narrative, because when you're someone like Sunny, who thrives on moral judgment, being told that the universe doesn't care about your outrage is the ultimate heresy. But the real explosion came when Megyn Kelly joined the conversation. She didn't shout. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't even raise her voice. What she did was far more devastating. She used facts. Cold, hard, uncomfortable facts. She responded to Sunny's sweeping declarations with statistics, sourced information, and quiet logic. And in that moment, everything Sunny had built began to fall apart. Sunny's signature move, framing every topic through the lens of racial injustice, was suddenly under the microscope. Whether the panel was discussing global politics, TikTok, trends, or even condiments, Sunny somehow always managed to steer the conversation back to systemic oppression. It had become so predictable that even her fellow panelists seemed weary. But this time, the usual nods and murmurs of support were replaced by silence, skepticism, and finally, opposition. It all started with a debate about global superpowers. Alyssa Farah, The View's designated Republican commentator, expressed concern that if America lost its standing as a global leader, the vacuum wouldn't be filled by Denmark. It would be filled by China. A regime, she pointed out, that currently runs concentration camps for Uyghur Muslims and enforces strict racial hierarchies. But instead of agreeing, Sunny pivoted. She didn't address the point about China's atrocities. She didn't even acknowledge them. Instead, she launched into a monologue about how patriotism and the American flag had been co-opted by the political right. This, of course, is classic Sunny. Never respond to the argument at hand. Instead, redirect, reframe, and rebrand every concern as a symptom of deeper oppression. But this time, the redirection didn't work. Maher and Kelly weren't interested in playing that game. They stayed on topic. They pointed out how Sunny's argument, no matter how passionately delivered, wasn't just wrong. It was irrelevant. The conversation moved swiftly into dangerous territory for Sunny. Facts. Kelly noted how Sunny frequently brought up her legal credentials, almost like a verbal name tag. As a lawyer, she'd begin, only to follow it with something wildly speculative, legally questionable, or just downright illogical. It had become a kind of performance art, an exhibition of authority without substance. And when Kelly pointed that out, the damage was immediate. You could see it on Sunny's face. the frown of moral disappointment, the tightening jaw, the body language of someone who'd just been publicly corrected and couldn't stand it. But the most brutal moment came when Sunny invoked one of her most controversial comparisons, likening the January 6th Capitol riot to the Holocaust and slavery. This wasn't a one-off misstatement. It was a reflection of how far Sunny was willing to go to dramatize her political views. Kelly didn't explode in outrage. She didn't call names. She simply pointed out how absurd the comparison was, and how offensive it might be to those who had actually endured slavery or genocide. Again, the logic was simple, and again, Sunny had no defense, because at the end of the day, Sunny Hostin isn't used to defending her ideas. She's used to declaring them. When those declarations are met with silence or applause, they feel powerful. But when they're met with scrutiny, they begin to unravel. And unravel they did. Even Whoopi Goldberg,